Our story begins in 1923. It's a story of ingenuity, determination, and grit. Kansas soldiers had returned home from World War I. An aviator from Atchison had just become the first woman to earn a national pilot's license. And a small group of Kansas highwaymen came together to form what would become the Kansas Contractors Association.
They were all a couple of brothers that were in business, or a father, son. In our industry, even to this day, a lot of them are just family companies that have passed from one generation to another.
My grandfather started Buyer Construction in 1935 is the oldest document we could come across. I think everything before then was a handshake. And he was like lots of people in that era, just trying to eke out a living.
Foley is a third-generation family-owned business founded in 1940 by Paul Foley Sr.
We actually bought a company in Larned, Kansas. It was an existing construction company, and that was back in '73.
Well, we're a family-owned business. I'm basically the second generation, and there's several of those type of companies within the organization.
And the ham companies actually got their start back in the 1950s.
I suppose I've been working nonstop in the industry since about 1960.
Well, Monarch was established in 1908, and so we're a 114-year-old company.
My grandfather actually started it, and it would have been right when World War II was breaking out.
After World War II and President Eisenhower's passage of the Interstate Highway Plan, more Kansas families ventured out on their own, starting local construction companies. With the unified voice of the KCA and the support of each other, they strived to weather the good times and the bad.
It was trying times because you didn't exactly know what was going to happen next.
When I look back on it, I thought it must have been such a huge endeavor for them, because at that time they came back from war, and it's like, what do we do? And they started off with a couple dump trucks, and it grew, it grew, it grew.
My fear was that I wouldn't be able to support my family, which I had two children, and I left a pretty good job in the Army. I gave up two pretty good jobs to do this on my own, and for one person doing what I was doing, and I was in my 30s. I wasn't a young person, and it became at times curious to me why I would do anything like this. It was difficult to do, and it took a lot of hard work.
It was very scary. It was. We double mortgaged our house in Hutchinson.
I was just a little guy. I didn't have the experience, didn't know if I could do it or not. But we took it on and got it done. So the KCA got me that job.
We actually lived, or Dad did, above the office. There was a little bedroom above the office over in Larned for several years before we ended up coming to Gray Bend.
That's where they started in 1934 with the brother-in-law and his brother, my father. And he was the only one that had a job. He was working for Coke, so they had a paycheck every month. And they all kind of lived together because this was hard times.
It was hard, and it was a struggle. And it was in a time where it was tough for women. It was tough for women in this industry. And I was blessed because I had such wonderful mentors, especially from this association.
So this is a list of all the past presidents of the KCA, and I've made a check mark by the names of the ones that have really had an impact on my life.
And it's like geese that they fly in a flock, and they rotate who's in the lead to take the wind off the rest of them. And at that time, we had many members that were willing to come in and help at that time also. And that's the way the KCA is. We all help each other at all times.
You know, without the KCA, we sure wouldn't have that voice.
With hard work and fortitude came reward. As Kansas began to grow its infrastructure, connecting more communities with safe, reliable roads and bridges, the Kansas economy grew with it.
We always charted our own course. If this is the way we need to do something to make our roads safer or better or to serve Kansans better, then, we did it and we figured it out how to pay for it. And I think that ethic is still alive and well in Kansas.
We work a lot in rural Kansas, so if you think about the impact that it might have.
Those things, as small as they're not going to be the mega, interchanges built. But those are just as important to a community as going in and making a geometric revision, changing the profile of a roadway so we don't have a hill that you can't see over. Those things are important to schools, they're important to the traveling public, they're important to people that are employed, they're important to households, they're important to anyone who gets that morning, starts their car, and gets on the highway.
We've had a big part of that in the growth of the community, and really proud of that and the ability to look back on what you've constructed and how it improves the community.
What these projects, these big highway projects, really do for the community is economic growth. When you're building out good infrastructure and good road systems, it really allows the communities to have that economic development that they long for.
So satisfying, really, when you do complete a project, see it done and know it's going to be there for the next 80 to 100 years.
We're involved in something at the end of it that you can step back and look at and see the changes and the impact that you've made within that place.
I think that it's rewarding when you pull up on a project, and I hope that the day for me never comes where I don't get excited about still pulling up on a project that say, I built that.
For generations, Kansas contractors have continued the legacy, building the infrastructure that is the catalyst for our state's economy and building on the hopes and dreams that their parents and grandparents set out to achieve.
Born and raised in the construction business, and I was never going to do anything but build highways, no question. Yeah.
So it's something that I had always grown up in and wanted to continue to do. My heart was always there.
I was born and bred to be a contractor. That's the only job I've ever had, only paycheck I've ever gotten.
Well, if you have a parent that's worked all of his life and to do something, to build something better for his family and be able to pass that on, I think that's a legacy that every parent may want. My dad started with nothing and built it, and so you sure don't want to disappoint, that's for sure.
Still his company, we're just running it.
Yeah.
Things look bright for our industry, and that's a good thing.
So proud of what's happening and what is happening and what I see. It puts a smile on my face, and my heart just throbs. It's a big deal.
Behind every road and bridge, behind every railroad, airport, and utility line, there's a story to tell. It's the story of family and community. It's the story of Kansas. It's the story of us and our next 100 years.